has just arrived. Inside this box there's quite a little gem. So I'm going to unpack it and I'll show you what I've got. Okay, here it is out of the box. Now I've just set it up for a minute by the window because I think it gives the best representation of the colour. It is green and brown. In my screen it looks a little bit lighter, so it's a little bit darker than what you see, but it is green and brown. So I'm going to take it through to the other room now, where I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it and what I intend to do. Okay, here's the drum I showed you a minute ago. You could be forgiven for thinking it's a bit of a lost cause. In this light you can't really see how bad the finish is, but it is pretty green and brown, and it certainly doesn't look very nice, and the drum doesn't really sound very nice. If it was going to get used, it might get used for a bit of practice or maybe the odd gig in this state, but that would be a shame because it's a really nice drum. It's a WFL stroke Ludwig 16 by 16 floor tom. It's made from Ludwig 3-ply, which was mahogany at the outer, poplar on the middle and mahogany again on the inner, and supported top and bottom by maple support hoops. It's got a real warmth to the bottom end. Mahogany does have quite a warmth to the bottom end. Mahogany doesn't really get used for drums these days. It's not sustainable. Maple is sustainable, birch is sustainable, but mahogany isn't. So these drums are becoming rarer and rarer, which is a shame because mahogany is just a really great wood to make a drum out of. It's also a rock and roll drum. It's a rock and roll drum made at the time that rock and roll was starting. So this has got the rock and roll sound. And it's had a great deal of history, I'd imagine. It's 55 years old. Yeah, so we're going to try and restore it as much as we can, as sympathetically as possible. I'm not going to change any of the hardware. I'm not going to start changing the hoops just because it's all a bit crusty. Keep the original hardware. I'm not going to recut the edges. I'm going to tidy the bottom edge up a little bit because this hoop has been off for quite a while, I think, and the edges are a bit chipped, so that might have to be dealt with. And other than that, we're going to mainly just try and restore this finish to as close to its original colour as it was. That's not going to be 100% possible, but at least then we can get it into another set that matches in colour, and then that will probably be used a lot more than it's being used right now. So I'm going to start by stripping off the hardware and then we'll see what we've got left. Okay, the first job that I'm going to start is the first stage of cleaning the lugs. Now, when I first viewed these lugs, I thought they were nickel plated, but they're not, they're chrome. But they've just got a huge amount of dirt on them. I haven't yet taken the legs off the drum, and I've still got the hoop, but I'm going to do the same thing to them that I'm going to do to these lugs. And it's basically this. This is the first stage anyway. WD-40. Everybody's got a can somewhere. Get it all over the world. Useful for everything, pretty much. And all I'm going to do is just spray them. Just put spray WD-40 all over them. Inserts as well, everything. It's not going to do any harm. And I'm going to leave that overnight and see if all that dirt comes off them. I've taken the hardware off this drum and you can kind of see what we're up against now. As you know, this finish is called Sky Blue Pearl, and you can see where the lugs were. That's where it was. That is still sky blue, but over the last sort of 55 years or so, it's aged to this greeny browny colour and darkened. this drum was made sort of between 1955 and 1959, and it's my favourite sort of period of Ludwig or WFL drums. They seem to be made a lot better than drums from slightly later. I think a little bit more care and attention went into them. When Ludwig got the name, Ludwig got the name Ludwig back from, and they were making drums as WFL. When they got the name back, I think a little bit more pride went into these drums, and they seem a lot more sturdy. I've tested the top and bottom. As you know, there was a head missing on the bottom, and the hoop was missing. And usually, if you have a drum from the 60s, it tends to go out around a little bit more. But this one stayed in shape, which I think is sort of quite characteristic of drums of this era. They're very, very solid, very sturdy. I've still left the badge on, but that's going to come off in a minute. I'm just going to show you inside. All mahogany. It's a little bit rough in there, so I'm thinking whether I'm going to sand it down. I wasn't going to sand it down, but it might look better if it's sanded down. I'm not sure yet. But the main issue I think we're going to address is this greeny blue finish, greeny browny finish. See if we can change that a bit. I'm just going to take the badge off. I might even just take a few photos of the badge to show you what it looks like. It's not called the transition badge, but it is probably the true transition badge, because it has WFL and Ludwig Drum Company written on it. So I think it is the true transition badge. People refer to the transition badge as the silver badge with the blue writing, and it's slightly bigger. But I think this is the true transition badge. Okay. Here is the hardware. It's been soaking in WD-40 for about 24 hours now. It's longer than I would normally leave it, but overnight is fine. As you can see, everything's been sort of completely dismantled. That's the floor tom, the leg holder, everything, all the lugs, everything completely dismantled. Everything's come out. So it's all been soaked in WD-40 for 24 hours. Legs, the nice top hoop. That's a brass hoop, chrome plated. So we're going to do the second stage of the cleaning now, which is this basically. I've got some products here. I've got some just plain old household bleach. It goes in there, a liberal sort of squirt. Some standard washing up liquid. I can never remember which products you need to add together to get mustard gas. I've never quite managed it, but apparently you can. And also one of these. This is my daughter's old toothbrush. You can see how much she used that before she got fed up with it. Not very much, but that's useful for getting in all the nooks and crannies and everything. I'm going to spare you the cleaning process, but basically you put it all in there with some very, very hot water. I'm going to boil a kettle now to do this, and leave it there for maybe an hour or two. Get all the WD-40 off and all the grime, and then I'm going to clean it. Just clean it with the brush, and I'll show you what happens. So here's the hardware now that I've finished cleaning it. As you can see, it's come up pretty good. I haven't used any metal polish. They've just been dried out of the sink, really. Pretty good. If these were nickel, I'd probably continue using some metal polish, but they're not. They're chrome, so they've done pretty good. They're a bit pitted, but they're a lot better than they were. A lot better than they were. Leg mounts, completely cleaned out. Look great. I used a bit of wire wool, very, very fine wire wool on the leg mounts. I don't use wire wool on anything else at all. Certainly not the lugs. That just scratches the chrome and the hoop. Don't use the wire wool on that. But the leg mounts were fine because in most of the places you wouldn't see it, and the chrome was pretty screwed anyway, so I didn't worry too much about it. The other thing that I did was something that I've never done before, and actually when I reassembled the lugs I put some cotton wool in the back there to stop the springs rattling. I've had a recent experience where I was playing on stage and the sound man pointed my attention to a rattle. And of course it was an horrendous thing to sort out, because you have to take off at least one head and you don't know which lug it is that's rattling. So potentially you have to take them all off, and both heads. So I've never done that before, but I'm going to try that, make sure it makes those springs stop rattling, because it can be a right pain in the arse if they start rattling. There's nothing you can do. You can't tape them up, you have to take them off and find it. So that's basically what I've done. I'm really pleased that the hoops come up as well as it has. Really nice brass hoop. The only thing that didn't perhaps come up as well as I'd want is the tension bolts. I might now have another go at them. Like I say, that's them finished now. I'm going to put them away until I finish the rest of the drum. Yeah, that's it. Really nice. So here we are. One shell, one green shell, green sky blue shell. And this is the point when we have to remember that most restorers would probably try to strip this off and re-wrap it with something similar. Unfortunately, there's nothing really that similar to the sky blue pearl on the market today. There is, but it's not like that anyway. And if you did try and re-wrap this, the chances are you'd pull the outer ply of mahogany off, and then you'd have to fill it, and then it would be less of what it is really. So this is where we're going to get industrial. So this is what we do. I've got a selection of graded wet and dry sandpaper here. It ranges from 240 grade, 400, 600, 800 and 1200. And I'm going to cut this up into small pieces and show you what's going to happen. This is a really labour intensive job. It's going to take me probably a few days, so I'm not going to show you exactly the whole process, but I'm going to explain what it is. Okay, so back to the shell. I've just spent about 10 minutes with the 240 grade wet and dry paper. Not on that side, as you can see. That's how it was before. I did this side. That is the part that I did spend 10 minutes on. As you can see, it's changed colour. I've just sanded the top patina off. Now the problem with that is, at the moment, that's not very shiny. So I will still have to go down with graded wet and dry paper and make that sure. I'll go around the drum and then go back to it in with another grade and keep going until I'm down at the 1200 grade wet and dry. But you can see how it's probably going to turn out now. It's not a complete restoration of the colour, but it's not that anymore. Just so as you know, this is what I do. Basically, I get a piece of wet and dry paper like that. I'm going to cut that in half actually. Put a sanding block there, wrap that around in the water, and then rub. Keep this nice and wet. That'll be a lot easier. Obviously it's wet and dry paper. So keep it nice and wet and keep going. I rubbed for about 10 minutes there, I think, to get that colour. And when you see that green sort of hazy patina disappear, then stop. There's not going to be any more blue coming out of it. Just stop. And then that's the point that you maintain for all of those sides. I work from one log hole to the next, so use that patch and then move it around and then do another part, and until you get right round, and then you start with a 400, 600, 800 and so on until you get down to the 1200, and then it's basically polishing. Okay, I've just finished that stage of wet sanding the finish down. As you can see, it's changed quite dramatically in its colour. It's not 100% back to where it was, but it's not far off. It's not far off. It's a little bit darker. It had darkened, but it's a lot better. I still have to remember what it looked like before. The next stage, as you can see, it's quite satiny. It's not shiny, really, and glossy like it should be. So now that I've wet sanded, I've got to use a bit of rubbing compound, and I'm going to use a polisher to rub some rubbing compound to make this nice and polished, and then I'll show you what it looks like after that. So here's the drum. I finished polishing it. When I say polishing it, what I did is I got some very fine rubbing compound, and I got a little sort of buffing machine. I sort of did the surface with that, and then waxed it, so there's no real sign of what it's been through. It's pretty shiny, as you can see. It's got a good gloss to it, and that sort of beautiful liquidy kind of look that sky blue has. You can see really all the detail of the finish, which is wonderful. Put the original hardware back on, so now you can see the finish in its context, really. The badge has been put back on. I think I'll take a picture of that. I don't think my camera can quite. Oh, it can, maybe. WFL drums. There's a few things that I haven't shown in this film. This film is starting to get a little bit long, so I've put that grommet, put the badge in with the grommet, the proper way, nicely fixed in. As far as the inside is concerned, I didn't really want to sand it too much. It's nice to have a little bit of antiquity left in the drum. I sort of sanded it lightly, but I would have probably gone through the ply if I'd have gone too far with it. As you know, the edges I was a bit concerned about. The top edge I didn't really do anything with at all. Actually, I didn't do anything with that one. It was fine. I laid it on a flat surface. It didn't rock around, so I left it as it is. The bottom edge, on the other hand, as you know, had a little bit of chipping in it. I'll just show you. All I did was I just went round with a metal file by hand and just took out the chips. There weren't too many. Again, it sat on a flat surface. It's got a nice curved profile. I can't really show you, but it took quite a bit of time on getting all that sorted out. So it's on a flat surface. It doesn't rock around. It'll tune up really nicely. So there's a little bit of paint there. I thought I'd leave some things. You know, you can't take everything out of the drum. So I'm just gonna show you. Just give you a little. There you go. Just gonna stay up. Nope. There you go. That is it. That's it, more or less finished. I'm going to put the heads on now, and that was kind of worth doing, wasn't it? That was a good week's work. So the drum is now finished. I reassembled it completely. I've put an old steel hoop on the bottom. It's in keeping with the restoration. The last thing I would probably like to do is put some rubber tips on the bottom of the legs. But apart from that, it's finished. It's finished. I'm just going to turn it around so you can see the finish all the way around. As you can see, it's pretty consistent all the way round. It's come up pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with it. What I did to this drum was a very labour intensive process. That's taken me about a week, and it's not something that I would do to just any drum. I did it to this drum because it was a good example of the worst possible starting point, and it was worth a shot. It was worth a shot, and you can see that it's come out all right. it has its hazards. You know, if you try this, there's a good chance that you'll just, you know, make the finish far worse than it was when it started. So you have to be very careful with it. But it was worth doing. Yeah, you can see that. That drum's now got a life. It's probably going to find its way into the hands of somebody who's going to use it for another 20 years or so, with a bit of luck, maybe more. The good thing about this finish is that the finish was applied to the plywood before the drum was actually shaped, so it's really stuck on well. The drum was moulded with the finish already on it, so it's not likely to crack or fall apart in any way. It's very robust. The one thing that I've done with this drum that I wouldn't normally do, normally I'd put just new heads on it, but in this particular case I've kept the head that it came to me with, because, and I don't know if you can see that, it's printed with Manny's Music, 48th Street, New York City, which is a very, very famous music shop that no longer exists. And I suppose the head in itself is quite rare, so I've kept that. A nice little thing to have. And there you have it. One finished WFL Ludwig 16 by 16 floor tom in sky blue pearl.